Hey guys, Stephanie here with the Aeroponic Tower channel, and today I want to take you on a little tour of the rest of my towers. I made a short video the other day of one of my home towers, but today I want to show you what's growing on my Flex. A Flex is a 20-gallon reservoir tank. This is the one that if you want to grow outside, you want to get the Flex because it has more flexibility and just offers more water for growing larger fruiting vegetables. So you're gonna see I have lots of peppers. My tomatoes haven't gone in yet, but there's squash, celery, things that are gonna require a lot more water. Especially as they start fruiting. I'll be doing melons on these towers. So let's dive in. It is towards the end of April. We're not past our first frost date yet. So if cold weather were to come, I would have to put these in the garage to protect them. But these give me a huge head start. None of this would be anywhere near ready to even put in the ground yet in our zone here. We wouldn't be able to plant these until after Mother's Day, and they certainly wouldn't be at the stage of development and even the stage of fruiting that these are in right now. So let's take a tour and I will show you guys some of the things that I'm growing. And I set my towers up as if they're a grocery store, and what I mean by that is every tower is diverse and it has a mixture of things that I buy at the grocery store. So I'm not using this for a lot of medicinal type herbs. If I have herbs in here, these are herbs that we eat as food, and I'm growing things that I would buy at the grocery store so that I can replace the grocery store with what's in here. And that means I'm growing things at all different stages. I'm constantly starting new seeds so that as one plant is starting to mature and end its life, I have another one ready to start fruiting, and I have another one that's a seedling ready to take the place of the one that's about to start fruiting, so that as I pull one plant out, like the celery, I have another celery that will be just this big very soon, and so on and so forth. That keeps me out of the grocery store. All right, and this is going to be some rough footage, but I really want to give you an idea of, you know, how fuss-free this is. We're just right outside my garage, and actually I was going to move these to a different area, but we're going to be moving the camper soon, and this is south facing sun, which you do want if possible. It doesn't have to be south facing, and then it gives me access to the garage, so if I need to put these in for some reason, or if I'm starting seeds, it's just there. And there's rocks on this part of the property where there's not where I wanted to put them, so I'm just going to keep them here, and they don't take up very much space at all. They're not in the way of anything. We don't use this garage for cars, obviously, so this is where they're at. And I have 6 towers. 4 of them are a Flex, and you can see I have my seedlings along the base. That's what I do when these plants are going to be outside. I will start them inside on a heat mat under a dome and under a heat lamp, but once they sprout and start to get to a decent size, they come outside so that they're adjusted for the outside growing conditions. So here on this tower, I'm just getting them set up. You're going to see here on this tower, you're going to see a lot of empty grow ports, and that's because I just am waiting for some of these plants to get a little bit bigger. I am a big advocate of making sure your plants are not too small when you put them in, and let me show you why. This right here is a great example. These I waited until they were the right size. They've been in here for 2 days. They have doubled in size in 2 days as far as fullness goes, but some of the leaves were already this size, and that was, and they had roots on all 4 sides and just looked really established. This one, however, was smaller. You can see how much smaller these leaves are compared to these over here, and this is what happened to it. These get a lot of water when you put them into the tower, and it can drown some of your plants. They can really struggle. Now, will this survive? Yes, but it's going to look like this for probably another week before it starts to make a comeback and turn into something stronger like this one. This would be the next phase of it. So that is why I really encourage people not to add things to their tower too early, because it's risky. And the difference between waiting until it's this size, this one just went in, this will be this big in 2 days because it's ready to be in here. This one's going to stay stunted for a week and do nothing as it recovers and tries to get a hold of itself, and then it's going to start to grow. So we've lost a lot of time by putting things in too early. So this is the baby green section. I have an extension kit on this tower, and then the rest is regular grow ports. In here I have cucumbers, and these are dwarf cucumber varieties. I'll be writing an ebook on the dwarf varieties for the towers. I'm a huge fan of the dwarf varieties because they will not take over your whole yard. A regular cucumber could take over this entire rock area and would need a trellis. These are not, so I'm testing a lot of those out. There's things like green beans in here. This is a green bean, cabbage, and then some peas, and those are little tom peas. Those are also a dwarf pea towards the bottom. And sometimes I say don't put viney things like cucumber or peppers towards the bottom row, because what can happen is the roots can grow into the reservoir and you don't want them in there. Then they're sucking up too many nutrients, and that's more of a hydroponic system. But this is not true hydroponics. It's not aerated, so it's really not good for the plants or the water. So you have to go in there and rip those roots out when you see them. So I may move that one. Sometimes I just let them grow there. Like I've got another pepper towards the bottom over there. If I decide to leave those peppers in the bottom, I just need to be mindful of managing the root systems as they start to grow into that reservoir tank. Over here we have Mizuna. This is purple Mizuna. Some bok choy type greens, just lots of baby greens. And then it's the same cucumbers, peas, and green beans. The rest of these ports I'll probably use to move some of those peppers and those peppers and things on the bottom up to the top for that reason I just mentioned. And sometimes I just have to put things in the tower for a little bit until I find space, or until things start to mature, and then I can move them around. With a pepper, you have a pretty decent time grace period where you can move these. Once they get huge and start fruiting, you would not want to move them because the root system's really big. But right now, no big deal. I've got another, several weeks before I would have to really worry about that. So that's what'll happen there. Here is a dill. This dill is actually getting quite mature, so I'll start using a lot of that. We have some green beans. These were my winter green beans, and they are not great, so I'm probably going to replace them. I was giving them a few days because they actually are starting to produce new leaves, and I don't have anything ready to go in anyway. I have some things really close, but again, you can see here's all my starts. Many people would find these significant enough in size to put them in. I just have different thoughts on that, so I like to wait just a little bit longer, but these are getting really close to being ready, another day or two. This is fennel bulb, cauliflower, my celery. This one's 3 celeries, so it made a bouquet, and when you do that, you're going to get smaller celeries. These are great for juicing because they've got lots of leaves, but if you want more of a grocery store type celery, you need to do 1 seed. There's a cauliflower kind of getting shaded out right here. It's another reason I like to do 1 seed, because then you've got 1 stalk of celery that goes up versus this wide arrangement here that's shading some things out. In this tower, we have things like kohlrabi, and you'll see kohlrabi throughout at different stages because I have some ready to eat, some coming up behind those, and then some that are just getting started. Same with the romaine, peppers. Here's some really big kohlrabi. I typically like to do 2 kohlrabi per rock wool because they pair up perfectly. One goes to one side, one goes to the other. They get all the nutrition they need, and they are just giant and gorgeous. Most of this is cauliflower on here, kohlrabi, and some peppers. And then you'll see, green beans too here. And then you'll see I put in lettuce. I always have a couple of leafy greens or fast turnover foods on my tower. If you only had 1 tower, rule of thumb for me to recommend would be that 8 of your grow ports are for leafy greens. If you want to do heavier fruiting things like peppers and eggplants and green beans, then leave about 1/4 of the tower for your herbs and your leafy greens, and that still gives you something you can eat off of every single day. Here we have an eggplant, and if any of these leaves get where they're shading it, you just pop them off and you can eat them. All right, and looking at this tower here, we have zucchini that's already fruiting. This is months before I would have zucchini in my outdoor gardens. So exciting. Parsley. Those are the herbs I like to grow, the food herbs. We have peppers. There's purple kohlrabi. That one's just getting started. More peppers. More peppers. Lots and lots of peppers on here. We have basil. We have more of those little tom peas. This is exciting over here. We have green beans ready to be harvested. I mean, come on. This would not be ready in my garden, my in-ground gardens, for like 6 more weeks at a minimum. More like 8 weeks if I'm lucky. Lots more squash. More squash. Up here, I think this is cauliflower, or that's purple kohlrabi. So this is an example of kohlrabi that's just getting started, versus right underneath it I have one that's a little bit further along. More peppers, more squash, more green beans that'll provide food for us in the next day or two, and some red romaine lettuce down there. So this is my home tower, and I did another tour of this one right here. Actually, if you want to see a previous video of that, I'll link it below. This one does have some big things on it, like collards, so you can grow big things. Kohlrabis. I have some giant Swiss chard on here, but overall the home unit is good for leafy greens, and then maybe 1 small tomato plant and 1 cucumber plant and 1 pepper plant and 1 cauliflower, and then lots of greens. I did a huge harvest off of this for juicing today. So I don't really want to go through these, aside to show you this beauty, the kohlrabi, and that beauty, the zucchini, because I want to stick, and these beauties. See, okay, I have to show you all these things. Those are bok choys. I forget what variety this is, from Baker Creek. Absolutely love it. I mean, how gorgeous, guys. So gorgeous. But on the last tower here, we have more squash, more zucchini. We have more squash. This is a yellow squash. We've got giant basil. We've got kohlrabi, large purple kohlrabi, purple cabbage, more purple cabbage. This is Imoko cabbage. Or no, this is a Chinese cabbage, and this is Imoko cabbage here, which is more of a bok choy. This gorgeous Salanova lettuce. This tower is a great example of about 1/8 of my grow ports being delicious, fast turnover foods like bok choys and these greens, but then also having tons of grocery store type foods as well. This is eggplant, kohlrabi, purple cabbage. There's an eggplant here, a huge eggplant here. This is way, way ahead of any size of eggplant I would get in my in-ground gardens this type of year. Giant tatsoi. Huge. This thing is massive. It actually needs to be eaten, and I can replace that with something. Lots of basil up here. Love basil. More squash. Lots of seedlings ready to take the place of things like this tatsoi as soon as I eat it. More purple cabbage. Towards the back here, we have our kohlrabis, different stages. And dill down here. It's doing good up on the top. The bottom part's a little scruffy. And then some kale that I actually harvested off of today to make kale chips. So I'll probably pull that out. These are just remnants of kale, so that's a good example of something I can finish eating and turn over. These are 2 baby kohlrabi, and then we're back to our squash and our basil. So I hope that gives you an idea of all you can grow on an aeroponic tower, and just the variety of food you can have. Even if you're just doing 1 tower, you can have those fast turnover greens, but you don't have to miss out on the things like squash and zucchinis and kohlrabis and eggplant and all those other things. Thanks for joining me, guys. Happy gardening. I hope this motivates you to go out and plant some things in your aeroponic tower garden.